There's a story about a boy. There's a story about a boy that was born into a loving family. The eldest of 3 children, this boy probably did what most boys do. And he learned, and he played, and he ran, and he laughed, and he cried, and he grew, and he trusted God. There's a story about a boy who grew into a man. And this man one day took a beautiful wife, and he had dreams of one day building and growing a beautiful family together with her, but no children. Okay? And so month after month and year after year, they waited and tried and waited again. You see, she was barren, which means she couldn't have any children of her own. She could not do anything to help move forward the lineage of the family line, but still, this man trusted God. One day, God spoke to this man, and he told this man, he promised him, he said that one day you are going to be a great nation. Your descendants, your bloodline, your offspring, one day are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky. And this man trusted God. And so month after month and year after year, they waited and tried and waited some more. And a year went by, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 10, and then 15 years went by, nothing. Promise was waiting to be fulfilled. And it's not that the man's wife totally doubted God's plan, right? Which we'll call plan A. It's not that she doubted his promise, but she felt like maybe she needed to help it along a little bit. And she devised and came up with something, her own plan B. And so she implemented it. And as you can imagine, as most plan Bs go, it went horribly wrong. And after plenty of heartache, it wasn't long before they were back to waiting and trying and waiting again. Month after month, year after year, 20 years, 25, 29 years after the original promise, something amazing happened. She got pregnant. She got pregnant, and a little while later, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. And this boy was born into a loving family. The only son of his father. This boy probably did what most boys do, right? And he learned, and he played, and he ran, and he laughed, and he cried, and he grew, and he trusted God. Well, one day, this man and his boy set out on a journey toward a hill called Moriah. And as they were loading up the animals, the boy asked, "Dad, where are we going?" And this man says, "Well, son, we're going to offer a sacrifice. We're going to offer a burnt offering to the Lord." And the son took inventory of their supplies, and he sees, okay, well, I see the wood for the fire, I see the rope, but Dad, where's the lamb? "The Lord will provide, son. But let's head on our journey." And so they did. And when they arrived at this hill where the sacrifice was to take place, they began unloading things, and this man, he built an altar out of stones, and then he unbundled the firewood and laid it out on top of the altar. And the son, looking around again, he's like, "Okay, Dad, like, where is this lamb?" "The Lord will provide, son, but son, I need you to come over here." So, "Son, give me your hands." The son reached out his hands, and this man bound them with rope. "Dad, okay, seriously, where is this lamb?" "Son, the Lord will provide, but I'm going to need your feet next." And as he reached out his feet, they also were bound with rope. "Dad, where is the lamb?" "Son, the Lord will provide, but now I'm going to need you to climb into my arms." The son stood up, and the father embraced him and hugged him as though it were the last time. And then he laid him on top of the wood on this altar. There's a story about a boy. There's a story about a boy who was born in a humble stable. And the only son, the only begotten son of his father, this boy probably did what most boys do, right? He learned and he played and he ran and he laughed and he cried and he grew. But when this boy grew, he grew in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and with man. And this boy trusted God, and this boy was God. And as this boy grew into a man, he set about his father's work on earth. And one day, this boy began a journey toward a hill, near a hill called Moriah. Toward a hill near Moriah. And as the father asked of him, he reached out his hands as they were bound, and his feet as well, and he was laid on a wooden altar. And I wonder, as he stood there on that side of the valley looking across at Mount Moriah, if he somehow heard the reverberating question of a small boy 1,000 years before that asked, "Where is the Lamb?" And in that moment and in that day, that question finally had an answer once and for all and for all. And as this man was preparing to take his last breath, his father said, "Okay, son, now I'm going to need you to climb into my arms." And into the father's hands the son committed his spirit, and it was finished. Genesis chapter 22, starting in verse 9, says that when they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out with his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham." "Here I am," he replied. "Do not do anything to that boy," he said. "Do not do anything. I know that you fear God because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." And Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And so Abraham called that place, "The Lord will provide." And I try to picture that session, how quickly, when the angel of the Lord came and said, "Stop," how quickly he must have been like, "Okay, son, let me get those ropes. Give me your hands, son. Let's get those ropes off of you. You don't need them anymore because the Lord has provided." There's a story about another boy. There's a story about a boy that was born into a world of sin. The eldest of 3 children, this boy did what other boys do. And he learned and he played and he ran and he laughed and he cried and he grew and he thought he trusted God. But then he was molested. And then his father left home. And in the heartache and in the humiliation, this boy began to fashion in his mind ropes. And month after month and year after year, he wove these ropes and ended up binding himself up with these ropes of shame, these ropes of worthlessness. Until one day, he understood that before the foundations of the earth, there had been a God who set out on a journey toward a hill near Moriah, where stands a cross, not only a symbol of shame, but a symbol of hope and forgiveness and unconditional love. And the day that this boy, the day that I received Christ into my life, I heard the Father say, "Son, give me your hands. Give me your hands. You don't need those ropes anymore. The Lord has provided." There's one final story today about 6 guys in a church on a Thursday afternoon. 6 guys who have the divine appointment and opportunity to respond to God's command. "Son, show me your hands." Because salvation is not only about what God has saved us from, but it's about what God has saved us for. And he's saying, "Son, would you be willing to consecrate yourself to me, even if again, to be found useful to my good, pleasing, and perfect will?" song,